Where's Crump?
Okay. Amorous. They're recording it for Rev, so ask them.
Can you go live? They both. And where the? You can't do both. Can you do both?
Yeah. You gotta do both.
Just 1 second, thank you. Okay, ready? Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming today. Today, National Action Network kicked off its annual national virtual convention, which is the reason we are outside to deal with safety precautions in the wake of COVID-19. So we are outside for this press conference, and at this time, I would like to introduce the man that has led National Action Network for 30 years, Reverend Al Sharpton.
Well, thank you. Let me say, before I make a statement and bring others on, of course, to my right is the Attorney General of Black America, Ben Crump, and we have Sequetta, I always say Sequetta, from Sacramento, California, Stephon Clark's mother, who was killed by police, the mother of Trayvon Martin, Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Eric Garner. The mother of Eric Garner, Sabrina Fulton, and the mother of Michael Brown, killed by police in Ferguson, Missouri, Leslie McSpadden. This morning we started our convention. We had a virtual message from President Biden, then Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, then the Majority Leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, and then the Attorney General of the United States, Mr. Garland. It was good to hear the President specifically deal with voting, saying that we could not go back to a time where blacks had to count the amount of jelly beans in a jar, and other statements. I'd not heard the President speak that strongly before. I was glad to hear Attorney General Garland speak and say that he is going to give priority to investigating police departments, which we as National Action Network are committed to. But we are holding this convention in the middle of two situations that we're involved in. The trial around the killing and murder of George Floyd, and now the case in Brooklyn, where we are in Minnesota, where we're dealing with the case of young Mr. Wright. This morning, it was announced they're charging the policewoman that killed Mr. Wright with second-degree manslaughter.
Yes.
It is my feeling and feelings of many of the delegates here. We do have 125 delegates from our 110 chapters around the country, about 80 represented, that manslaughter 2 is the least she should get. The least, possibly more. When you look at the fact that you're dealing with a 26-year veteran, if she didn't know in 26 years the difference in size and weight of a gun as opposed to a taser, then how was she a veteran in policing? How was she even on the force that long when you know you put your gun on your dominant side and your taser on your least dominant side? So absolutely that raises a point of criminality. But aside from that, I raised the question on her as I raised the question on the Chauvin case. What the media has not dealt with is why were either of these people being subjected to an arrest in the first place? Amen. When you look at the fact that this young man was stopped for expired tags when there is a backup of expired tags in that city, because due to COVID, there's a backlog in getting your tags restored. And even if the tags were expired under normal circumstances, you'd give him a ticket. You would not arrest him. So the fact that they were leading to an arrest in the first place is suspect. In the case of that we're dealing with George Floyd, the story we are told is that he allegedly gave a counterfeit $20 bill and to get a pack of cigarettes, and then left the store, and the person that he gave the money to the counter gave it to the supervisor because he didn't want it to be charged to him when they added up. He told the supervisor this may be counterfeit. The supervisor called the police. Police came. George Floyd was still sitting outside in the car, which tells you that then he may not have known he had a counterfeit bill. If you paid somebody with a counterfeit bill and got out the store, the last thing you do is be sitting around waiting on somebody to call the police. You'd be in flight. George Floyd should not only not have been killed, George Floyd should not have even been arrested. If they felt it was counterfeit, they should have gone to him and said, do you realize this was counterfeit? How did the police determine he was guilty and be the prosecutor and the jury and the executioner? They would have said to him, did you realize this was counterfeit? If he said no, do you have other money you could pay for this cigarette? You wouldn't put him in handcuffs and throw him to the ground. This whole two situations talk and show the over-policing that is done in the black community. I believe if Wright or George had been of a different color in a different community, they would have at most been given a ticket. They would not be dead. We cannot, as we stand here today, having heard the president, having heard the attorney general and others, we demand that people deal with the question of there are two levels of policing in this country, one for blacks and one for whites, and we want federal law to be passed and enforced as we go for the passing of the George Floyd Justice and Police Act. Let me say this as I bring on the attorney. I have spoken with the family, the Wright family, and have told them National Action Network is with them. We have said that we will cover the cost of the funeral, just as we have many of the funerals here, Gardner's funeral, the Clark's funeral, and others. And no matter, I don't care what settlements they get, we don't even ask for money back. I've never had a GoFundMe page. We do this because this is what we do. Somebody needs to stand with these victims because they didn't plan to be victims. So we intend to be in Minnesota with them Attorney Crump will take them to make funeral arrangements tomorrow that National Action Network will cover. Because this is not about raising money. This is about being able to do it so that whatever the families get is theirs. Secondly, I want to say that we will be in Minneapolis with the George family. I've been there 3 times already. I will be there for closing arguments through the sentencing to show the support of our community. Yeah. Let me tell you that many years ago, a young man was killed named Martin Lee Anderson in a boot camp in Florida. I met a young, fiery lawyer. I had thought that I would not see the likes of a Johnny Cochran again, but I met this young man who then a couple of years later became the lawyer for Trayvon Martin. He has put his shoulder to the wheel and has earned the faith and trust of not only Black America, but Americans all over. And it is with confidence that we deal with him. When he calls, National Action Network's there, I'm on the next plane, he can explain it to me when I get there. Amen. He has earned our respect and regard. He's the attorney for both of the families that I've just discussed, and he was our main interpreter today at the convention. May we hear from the Attorney General of Black America, Ben Crump.
That's right, that's right.
You know, Reverend Al, it was most appropriate that when we got the announcement that the county attorney, Peter Orput, had decided that the charges of second-degree manslaughter will go forward against Officer Potter for the killing of 20-year-old Dante Wright, that we were having a session with the mothers of the movement here at the National Action Network's convention. We had on stage with us Sequette Clark, the mother of Stephon Clark, Sabrina Fulton, the mother of Trayvon Martin, Gwen Carr, as you all know, the mother of Eric Gardner here in New York, and Leslie McSpadden, the mother of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. And Reverend Al, the reason I point all of that out and why it is so very important, the reason why we are able to get an opportunity at due process so quickly in the state of Minnesota for the killing of Dante Wright is because of the blood of their children. It was the blood of their children who got us to this point now in America. Because remember, Leslie didn't get due process. Right. The police officer was never charged and arrested like the officer was today. Gwen Carr, as you all know, she never got due process. Nobody was ever arrested and had to face evidence and witnesses in the court of law for choking Eric Gardner. Sequette Clark never ever got due process in Sacramento when Stephon Clark was killed in his grandmother's backyard. And Sabrina Fulton, my Lord, the sacrifices of what she has given and how Trayvon Martin has propelled the notion that Black Lives Matter and that we should get equal justice under the law is the reason why on this day in 2021, in less than a week, Reverend Al, in less than a week, the district attorney made the decision that we will charge this officer and the family of Dante Wright will get to have their day in court. So we say justice for Dante Wright, and yeah, we're gonna say justice here in New York for Dante Wright, so they can hear it in Minnesota to know that we're coming. And in saying justice for Dante Wright, we're also saying justice for Michael Brown. We're also saying justice for Eric Gardner. We're also saying justice for Trayvon Martin. And we're also saying justice for Stephon Clark. And Jacob Blake. And we also
That's right.
are saying justice for George Floyd. And all of those we lost. Justice for Breonna Taylor. Justice for Terrence Crutcher, justice for Alton Sterling, justice for Philando Castile. The list can go on and on and on. So we include everybody in our quest for equal justice under the law. I'm so very proud to stand with my mentor, Reverend Al, and these mothers, because I understand that we are all connected here. We are all connected. And as we wait on the jury to start deliberations next week in what I believe is the most consequential trial regarding the police excessive use of force against marginalized minorities in the Derek Chauvin trial regarding the killing of George Floyd, I am just shocked and I am upset. I am outraged. It's just so unconscionable and unbelievable, Reverend Al, that within 10 miles from where the trial regarding the killing of George Floyd is taking place, that a police officer will yet again kill another unarmed black man. If ever there was a time in America when the police should be on their greatest behavior, their best behavior, if ever there was a time when they should use their best standard of care, if ever there was a time when they should use their best discretion, if ever there was a time, Reverend Al, when they should be de-escalating on every situation, it should be now, and especially in Minnesota.
That's right.
I mean, it's just unfathomable.
Same county.
Same county. I mean, we're gonna have the funeral at the same spot where George Floyd was killed almost a year ago. I mean, it's just, I cannot even believe it that this officer would engage in that use of force. I mean, it's like Reverend Al said, they could have given him a ticket. And I know we're going to have a press conference in Minnesota tomorrow and get into the legalese, but please understand this. Please understand this, Sabrina and everybody here. We all dealing with a pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. DMVs all over the country have been shut down. In Minnesota, they've been short-staffed. So people can't get their license tag renewed, their car registration, when they expire. So they have given memos to police. You shouldn't be pulling people over who got expired registrations because people can't get their cars registered because nobody's open. And so it boggles the mind why she would pull him over in the first place. Or is it the rules are set aside when you're really being targeted for driving while black? Because when you get down to the crux of the matter, when you look at what this officer did, she over-policed from every point. Reverend Al said it best, 26-year officer who's training. She's the training officer.
What's she training?
She's training the young officers, Rachel, of what to do in these situations. Was that a lesson in de-escalation or a lesson in escalation? We can do better, America. That's all we're saying here at the National Action Network Convention. We can do better where George Floyd gets an opportunity to take a breath, where Breonna Taylor gets an opportunity to sleep in peace without the police busting open her front door to serve a no-knock warrant, where Ahmaud Arbery can run in peace and not be lynched for jogging while black in 2020, where all of these mothers' children's legacy could be honored by us doing better, America, where we can have our children too expect to participate in the American promise of life and liberty in the pursuit of happiness. So we take this as a solemn moment, and I know Reverend Al and Rachel and we all thought it would be appropriate, as I talked to Katie Wright and Aubrey Wright, the parents, as I just talked to today, the parents of Dante Wright, Aubrey Wright, his father, Katie Wright, his mother, the mother of his 1-year-old child, Dante Jr. And as Reverend Al said, we're preparing not only to go back to Minneapolis for the remainder of the Chauvin trial to receive the jury's verdict, we now have another task at hand that we ask for prayer, and that is to pray for the family of Dante Wright as we get ready to give him a respectable homegoing service where Reverend Al would deliver the eulogy. And despite how they're going to attempt to assassinate his character, we're going up there to celebrate his life. Because just like all of these mothers, you don't have the right to kill their child and then kill their character. We won't accept that. And so, Reverend Al, if you still think it's appropriate, we want to have each of these mothers just give Katie Wright, this broken-hearted mother who received her baby's body from the medical examiner's office to the funeral home, and is part of a sorority that no mother wants to be a part of. So we'll hear from these mothers before Reverend Al and I try to take a few of your questions, and I'm sure it triggers memories in them like no other. So if you please give them the charity of your undivided attention. We'll have Miss Leslie McSpadden. Rev, you want to? Okay, Miss Leslie McSpadden go first.
Oh, wow.
Leslie again is the mother of Michael Brown, killed by police in Ferguson, Missouri.
Well, I'm going to piggyback off some things you said, Rev and Crump, about the assassination of their character once they assassinate our children. And I want them to know that Dante Wright's past has nothing to do with the present. It has nothing to do with what happened on that stop. She didn't know Dante, and she knew nothing about Dante. And I would encourage their mother to make sure that they stay on top of keeping the main thing, and that's that she killed an unarmed man. She killed her son, and now she has to make funeral plans. But I want her to know that she now has a guardian angel forever. And we love you.
Thank you, Leslie.
The mother of Trayvon Martin. Trayvon was not killed by a cop, but he was killed by a wannabe cop who tried to convince the jury he had the right to do it. We will never forget Trayvon Martin. Sabrina Phillips.
Amen.
First of all, I want to say whoever said time heals all wounds did not lose a child.
Wow.
Because we are never going to heal. This country has done something to us that will never be repaired. It does not matter how much money we're given. It does not matter how many people support us. It does not matter a lot of things. I just want to say to the family, we are deeply saddened by what you are going through, by what you have experienced already in the last few days and what you are about to experience sitting through a trial. An arrest is just step one. We all had arrests, and anybody could be arrested. But we have to get a conviction, and you can't give up on that. And I just want to say, continue to support, continue to stand up, and we're not going anywhere. We're in this for the long haul. Thank you.
Amen.
Saquette Clark, mother of Stephon Clark, Sacramento, California.
Thank you, Reverend Crump.
First of all, I just want to say this. I want to say a prayer for Katie and for her family. So, Father God, I just thank you for your graciousness, your mercy, and your love. And I implore for you to impart your perfect peace into her heart. Perfect peace into the family's heart, Father God. Hold them, keep them, and comfort them the same way you have held, comforted, and kept us. And I thank you for it being done now, in Jesus' name. All that agree say amen. 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 So we receive that for their family. Katie, my heart goes out to you. I will stay on my knees for you. I want to touch on something that the mother said. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But every day that we wake up, our sons and daughters were killed last night. This will never go away. And so I thank God that although the officers who killed Stephon Clark are still employed with Sacramento Police Department, I am getting a bit of justice with these officers being arrested immediately in the cases of George Floyd, and of Daunte Wright. So justice is coming. It is here. Thank you.
The mother of Eric Gardner, who never was able to go to court. When I got the call from Ben Crump about George Floyd, and he said the family wanted me involved, the first thing I did is call Gwen, because I said to Gwen, when I saw the tape of George Floyd saying 27 times I can't breathe, it reminded me of her son Eric Gardner, 11 times I can't breathe. I said, I know it's the middle of a pandemic and we're in a lockdown, but I'm on my way to Minneapolis, will you go? And she said, what time are we leaving? And Tyler Perry sent a private plane and brought us in. There were no flights from New York to Minneapolis. And Gwen and I and my assistant flew down and held a rally. The family had not even come because the family's in Houston. And we held a rally and came back a week later and did the funeral. Gwen has been a real trooper. The mother of Eric Gardner, Gwen Carr.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to say to you, my sister Katie, you're not in this alone. We are here. We are here for you. As these mothers reached out to you, I reach out to you. I embrace you. I empower you. And I hold you in my heart because I know what it is you're going through. You don't know which way to turn. You don't know who to listen to. But pray. Pray to God. As Sequet has just prayed for you, take heed and lift up his name. He will guide your footsteps.
Amen.
In my son's case, I didn't get a day in court, only a departmental trial, which was not enough. That's why I fight. I fight so hard. I don't only fight for my child. I fight for everyone's child. Because either that could knock on any one of your door any day, but you got to be prayed up. You got to be ready. You have to have an arm to lean on. So lean on God's everlasting arm. And don't forget, He is always on the throne. He's the one who sits high and look low. So no one, don't even think that you are alone. But grieve like you want to. Don't let anyone tell you how to grieve, how long to grieve, and when to stop grieving. You do that yourself. And that's what we all had to do for ourselves. And I just say, God bless you and God keep you, Katie.
I want to acknowledge, and we'll take some questions. I want to acknowledge Reverend Adolphus Lacey, pastor of the historic Bethany Baptist Church in Brooklyn, Alvin Ponder, Reverend DeVestu, and some of our leaders at the convention. Are there any questions?
WABC, Kimberly. If the officer is convicted, the most she could face is 10 years in prison. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, as I said in the beginning, that I would have liked to see more. But I've seen so many cases, some standing right here that got nothing. And I think the fact that she has been charged is better than we get in New York sometimes. But it's not what we feel is just, which is why we want federal laws.
Reverend Sharpton Ayana with Pix 11. What do you think made the difference in this case that you're seeing charges, as you mentioned, so many other families didn't get that?
I think the difference is that there's been a continuing, consistent movement. There's been social media, but there was videotape on Rodney King 30 years ago. It's not just a tape. I think after George Floyd, and Ben Crump and I talk about it all the time, when they saw as many whites as blacks out there marching, they knew that they could no longer cover this up. One thing I saw in the George Floyd situation, the Derek Chauvin trial that I had not seen, is policemen got on the stand and testified against him. The blue wall of silence was pierced in Minneapolis. I want to continue to see that happen.
Shannon from New York One News, I know you've been in touch with the family. They're obviously devastated. Is there anything else you can share about how they're doing?
I will say this, and then Mr. Crump should answer. I talked to the father. I talked to China, who's the mother of the child. They're devastated and don't understand why on some tags are our lives worth no more than expired tags? Are our lives worth no more than a pack of cigarettes or a counterfeit $20 bill? I mean, the worth of our lives have gone from 3/5 of a man to being less than that in these situations. That's why we have to fight. They're devastated.
Yeah, and certainly everything Reverend Al said, his family, all of them are just completely devastated. If you heard his aunt Naisha express her agony, her anger, that they were already trying to justify it and explain it away, that we should give this officer a pass even though their nephew is gone forever. His baby is going to grow up fatherless. Think about how hard a black male child has it in America already. Now add on to that he's going to have to grow up without his father. And so when we talked to his parents, they did ask those questions. How much time can she get? And it is unfair. Let's just be honest about it.
That's right.
It's very unfair. When you compare apples to apples, we do know that when people of color, especially black people, are accused of a crime, they throw the book at us, no matter what the situation is. Right. There was a white lady from Australia, same county, who was killed by an officer of color, Officer Noor, of Ethiopian descent. Very questionable circumstances. Right. Dark alley, police were called, they shoot in the dark, he kills her. He's charged with 3rd-degree murder. He's convicted. We have a white woman, broad daylight. She says, I went and I got the wrong use of force, even though a gun is 2.6 pounds and a taser is 8 ounces. A gun is black, clearly black. Your taser is black but has bright colored markings on it. I think in this situation, yellow markings on it. She held it for 5 seconds at least. At some point you say, all this training, and they practice pulling their weapons every day. All this training. At what point did you not feel that this was a gun in your hand versus a taser? And so the family, obviously, they are glad she got charged. That's more than Leslie or Sequette or Gwen got. But they do hope and pray for a day that we will get equal justice, just like our white brothers and sisters. Why should we always get a fragment of justice?
Mr. Crump, head of the BBC, you're standing here with mothers who have to relive the pain every time there's another incident. I just wonder if you could talk about what it will mean if there is a guilty verdict in the Chauvin trial.
You know, I've thought long and hard about this. I've conferred with my mentor, Reverend Al, and talked to some of the mothers as we've gone on these past 11 months. I honestly believe that a conviction in the Chauvin trial for the killing of George Floyd could set a precedence in America where we will find police officers being held accountable and sent to prison for killing black people in America. And it's so important because we can name any number of black men who were unarmed, killed by excessive use of force, and black women. We can't forget Breonna Taylor and Atiana Jefferson and Sandra Bland. Any number of marginalized minorities killed where nobody ever gets convicted and go to jail, but then people in their family with not as near the evidence that we had with Rodney King, with Michael Brown, with Stephon Clark. Gwen Clark, my God, it was on video. Almost 25 years after Rodney King, and yet the same outcome. So the prayer and the hope is that this will be the new precedence now. It's going to send a message. As Reverend Al correctly articulated, the blue wall of silence hopefully has been pierced forever. We will have officers coming forward testifying to the truth when people do things that are illegal or unjust. We want the police to come and tell the truth, just like they want people in our community to tell the truth. Well, why don't you show us how to do it? You be the example.
That's one of the responsible views. The resignation of Officer Carter was kind of not a surprise, but the police chief is also tendered his resignation. You've worked with this, been dealing with him for a year. Can you just react to him giving his resignation? It's kind of caught a lot of people off guard.
I think the resignation of the police chief was because he could no longer perform his duties with the trust of the community. When he stood at the press conference and said that he released the tape so people could see she was saying taser, taser, like he was trying to justify or make an excuse for the shooting, which had nothing to do with the fact that if she'd been trained and had to go consistently through practices and knowing the difference between a gun and a taser, that her saying taser would somehow excuse the fact she didn't know the difference between the weight and the color and the form of a gun. He was trying to acquit her before we even got to a trial. Because of that, because of prejudgment, which is a violation of him as being chief, he did the right thing to resign because he no longer was performing as chief, he was performing as a defense attorney. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Wilson, Sharpton. Hi, I'm with the BBC. I'm actually working on a 26-minute program that will air with Friday. And I wondered if